So beautiful to be together with all of you. We'll start as usual with one of our questions that comes in from our online family all over the world who join in through this beautiful gift of technology. And then we'll open it up to any questions that anyone here has. There's a microphone right here, so just feel free to come up, share your name, and share your question. As a parent, I'm trying to guide my teenage daughter to be a kinder, more mindful person. Yet I often find myself frustrated when she resists my advice or she chooses friends whose influence I worry about. How can I be a supportive guide without imposing my views or creating distance between us? This is asked from Rajesh from Mumbai. Teenage years are really difficult for everybody involved. It's difficult for teenagers. Being a teenager is difficult. It's difficult parenting a teenager. You've had 12, 13, 14 years of raising someone who you feel like you know them. I mean, aside from the fact that they emerged out of you, you feel like you know them. And then suddenly, it's like they become a completely different person. That kindness, that mindfulness, all of the virtues that we raise our kids with, suddenly, typically as teenagers, sometimes early teenagers, sometimes later teenagers, it seems like what has happened to them. And it's really important to realize that that's kind of part of the package of being a teenager, and it's actually okay. If they've got a foundation of what we call sanskaras, values, ethics, those deep impressions upon our psyche, they'll come back. But it's actually really important and beneficial that they do a little bit of rebelling in those years, because then they're choosing values and ethics from a place of conscious choice rather than from a place of having been forced into them. What you don't want is youth who abide by what we've taught them just because we've scared them into it or shamed them into it or, bargained them into it. Like, if you don't do that, God's going to punish you. If you do it, you'll get good things. It's a bargain. I'll act nicely, then I'll get good things. I act badly, I'll have bad things happen. That's not the foundation from which our values, our ethics should come. It's superficial level, like jailhouse behavior modification. It's not the highest goal for our children or our society. We don't want people to make what we would consider ethical or moral or spiritual, dharmic decisions because they're afraid of the consequences if they don't, or because they're looking to, get something from God. It's how you get your kids to clean up your room when they're little, because, Santa's coming, and if you don't clean up your room, Santa's not going to give you gifts. And it's, a kind of kosher, kind of not so kosher bargaining technique we use with little kids. But it's not for mature beings. We should not be doing the right thing because we're afraid of the consequences. or because we're looking to get, good karma. We should do the right thing because it's who we are, because it's the most natural way of being. And in a lot of cases, you only discover who you are by discovering who you're not. And so when kids go through a rebellious stage, I always tell parents, don't worry. It's okay. They're going to come back. If that foundation is strong, they will come back. They're just testing out different identities. Oh, what's it like to be one of these types of kids? What's it like to do that? What's it like to do this? What's it like to do that? There's a great story I love of a parent, a mother who brings her little boy to see Mahatma Gandhi. And I think it's a true story. If not, it's similar enough to true stories that I've heard it from a variety of places. And she says to Gandhiji, Bapu, please tell my son to stop eating so much sugar, that it's really bad for him. And Gandhiji says, sure. He says, but come back next week. Okay. So the mom leaves and she comes back next week, dragging her kid, and Gandhiji says, Beta, child, don't eat so much sugar. It's really bad for you. And the mother says, thank you, but why did you need us to come back a week later? And Gandhiji said, because first I had to stop eating sugar, and only then could I legitimately tell your kid to stop eating sugar. He said, last week I was still eating sugar. And it's a great story about the authenticity of living and also teaching. He could have very easily, early, the week before, said, stop eating sugar. He knew intellectually it's wrong. But those sorts of things don't carry a lot of weight. We've all heard things and learned things in our lives from a variety of different teachers that just don't carry much weight because it doesn't seem like the person who's giving the teaching is really someone who you are looking to emulate. It doesn't seem like that person is authentic and deep. So they're teaching you something, but they're not really inspiring you to follow it. And then there's teachers who you want to do whatever they say because it's coming from such an authentic place. And when we're teenagers, I think it's the time for us to really figure out, what is my authenticity? Okay, I can be a good girl because my parents taught me to be a big girl, and a good girl, and if I'm not a good girl, I'm going to get shamed. But that's not authentic. It's shallow. It's fear-based behavior modification. It's not authentic living. What we want is authentic living. You don't want your kids growing up being a certain way just because you've told them to be that way. That's great when they're 5 or 6 or 7. But when they become, 25, 26, 27, they should be making choices from their own way of knowing. But they're only going to know that in their 20s if they went through an experiential stage as teenagers. So it's okay. Let her go through that stage. The only job for parents, number 1, make sure they know you love them no matter what. No matter what, whatever sort of rebellious phase they're going through, that there is nothing they can do to make you love them any less. Because these are the years in which they are pushing boundaries. And they're looking to figure out, who am I in relation to the world? And what's the most important thing for them to know is whatever role they decide to wear, whatever of the identities they try out, they decide is actually them. That who they are is worthy of love. Otherwise, they spend their entire lives wearing an identity that isn't them, just trying to get love, just trying to get acceptance. So number one, no matter what they wear, no matter who they go out with, no matter who they go with, no matter anything, that you love them fully and completely. Number two, that you are there for them as a friend, for them to talk through things with. If you're shaming them, what time did you come in last night? Where were you? You know, what were you doing? And don't be that type of person. Those types of people are bad, wrong type of people. They'll never tell you. They'll just hide it. You don't want that. You want to be the person that your teenagers can come and say, Mom, Dad, you know, I was at this party last night and here's what people were doing and it really made me uncomfortable, and like I didn't want to do that, and I didn't know what to do, and you want them to come and have conversations with you like that. Those are the open doors through which you can guide them. But if they're too afraid of the consequences to even tell you that they were at a party because you forbade them from going to parties, and so they have to lie and tell you they were on some like study date at a friend's house, then you'll never have the benefit of really guiding them. So up until their teenage years, yeah, be strict, lots of boundaries, lots of rules. You're creating their sanskaras, their values, their ethics. But once they become a teenager, shift more into friend mode. Still boundaries, still rules, curfews, rules, all of that. But let up on it a little bit. You don't want them having to lie to you, which they will do. It's much better if they can actually be honest with you. So, yeah, I'll tell you a personal story about this. Many, many years ago, probably 25 years ago, in Pittsburgh, where Pujya Swamiji founded the world's first Hindu Jain temple. In the very early years when I first started going, Pujya Swamiji's been there since the early 1980s. We just celebrated the 40th anniversary of the temple. But when I first started going, I was, 26, 27. And there was a young woman, a daughter of very, very close devotees, pillars of the temple community, who was a teenager. And she was being a proper rebellious teenager. And our parents had no idea what to do. She was going out with the wrong sorts. She was drinking and using drugs and the whole thing. And Pujya Swamiji said, why don't you talk to her? And had me spend time with her. And spent quite a bit of time with her. And at the end, when we were leaving, I took her aside and I handed her $20, which could actually buy you something in those days. And I handed her $20 and I said, I want you to make me a promise that you will not spend this $20 and that you will keep it with you. And that this is the $20, this was the days prior to cell phones, prior to anything like that. Nobody had mobiles. So you will hold on to this so that when you are anywhere and you need to get home safely, and the person you went with is drunk or on drugs, or pressuring you to do something that you don't want to do, that you've got money to get in a taxi and come home. And you never have to get in the car of someone who's drunk or someone who's been doing drugs You never have to spend the night with someone or somewhere that you don't want to. And she took it. And according to her parents in later years when we spoke, that moment was this huge turning point for her. Because her parents were very, very staunch religious people, like pillars of the community. And here was their daughter showing up. Pujya Swamiji's in the house. She's coming in from a date at, late at night in cut-off shorts and, what teenagers are wearing in America. And the parents were just mortified, furious, and she's smelling of alcohol, and just everything wrong. And she was just constantly shamed and shamed and shamed and shamed. And because I had grown up in that world, A, I was a lot closer to her age, but B, I had grown up in that world. I understood it. It didn't shock me or worry me. And so I was able to talk to her on that level. She ended up marrying a really wonderful guy. They've got wonderful kids. She doesn't drink or use drugs or, just ended up coming back to her roots. It was just a phase. But it could have gone the wrong way. And just that very simple act of seeing her, trusting her, loving her, supporting her, actually ended up being enough to shift things really powerfully. So that's something that all of you have, whether it's your teenage kids, whether it's your nieces or nephews or someone you mentor or someone in your school. All they need at that age is to be seen, loved, cared for, held, regardless of what they're doing. Keep them safe and let them come back. I remember saying to her when I handed her the $20, I said, look, there's only two. I said, look, I really don't care what you drink, what you smoke. I'm not going to go there with you. You're going to make your own decisions. You'll do whatever you want to do. I said, but there's only two decisions that you could make that are irreparable. You cannot take them back. And this is why I want you to have this money. Decision one is that you end up having sex with someone, not in your right mind, not using protection, and you end up pregnant at 16. So that is a non-reversible, irrevocable decision. It will change your life forever. Or you get AIDS. Changes your life forever. You don't get to just say, oh, I was drunk, let me have a do-over. These are non-do-over decisions. I said the other decision is to get in the car with someone who's been drinking and get in an accident and die. I said, so other than those two decisions, do whatever you want. You'll learn your lessons in your own time. I have total faith. But this money is so you don't have to make either of those decisions. Yeah, I had forgotten that part of the story. That was another key point. And evidently, that hit her home so deeply. Not the fear, but the care. So, love the teenagers, support them, and have faith they're going to come back. And all you got to do is keep their bodies safe and healthy and alive throughout the teenage years. So by the time they come back in their minds, they still have a healthy, safe, alive body to come back into. Yeah, great question. Other questions that anyone here has? Yeah.
Thank you so much. I found that one of the most beautiful gifts and blessings in being here and being in the spiritual process is getting to experience these moments of just divine joy and love and happiness. And then moments where I'm totally thrust back into my humanness, where I'm completely forgetting I'm not the mind, I'm not the body, I am pure, eternal soul. And in these moments where it's like a switch is flipped and there's a lack of almost motivation or desire or inspiration or whatever you want to call it to reconnect with that true nature. So my question is, during those moments, what is that separation? What are those feelings, and what can we do to practice that constant reconnection to truth?
Yeah, it's ego, it's human mind, it's patterning, it's desires. We use words like vasanas or Maya, but these are just words that label a phenomenon that exists regardless of what words you use for them. We speak about the nature of the mind in terms of the afflictions of the mind. And there's many, many different afflictions of the mind, and different philosophical schools have different lists of the afflictions of the mind. I won't go into all of the lists here, but they all tend to converge around issues of ego, false self, grabbing, what we call rag or dvesh, desires and aversions. A monkey-mindedness, just that inability to even find any stillness. So it's the nature of the mind. Now the way to work with it, number one, is practice. I always say, for me, the mind is a muscle. I realize that biochemically it isn't, that the actual brain tissue is nothing like muscle tissue, but it functions like a muscle. Whatever you do, you build that muscle. It becomes easier and easier, and you become that's more like what you do. If you bend down and pick up boxes every day, bending down and picking up boxes is no problem. You've developed the muscles to do it. If you never bend down and pick up boxes, now suddenly you have to lift up your suitcase, it's heavy. You don't have the muscle. Simple. Same thing with the mind. It's a muscle. Whatever direction you use it in, it's going to grow in that direction. And we know this. We know that the brain changes based on how we live, based on what we do. People who are right-handed have different ways that their brain functions than being left-handed. If you're right-handed and you break your arm, and it's in a sling, or even without breaking it, you just put it in a sling, and you do everything with your left arm for a couple of weeks, your brain will change. Literally. Your left arm will actually get more muscles, and the muscle of the brain will change. So think of it really as a muscle. You've got this thing that has spent all of the years of your life operating in a certain way. Now you're trying to get it to operate in a different way. And, anybody who's ever worked out with a trainer at a gym, or who's ever been a trainer at a gym, knows they push you. My dad works out with a trainer on Zoom most of the time, but sometimes the guy comes to the house 3 days a week. And so when I'm back in LA visiting in the morning, I'll be walking by my dad's room, and you can hear this guy is yelling at my dad through the computer. My dad's 78, and he's getting yelled at by this, buff guy on the other end of the Zoom call, and otherwise, he'd spend the morning reading the newspaper or whatever. Point being that the reason that when people want to get in shape, they tend to hire a trainer is because they know I'm never going to go to the gym otherwise. Like if I haven't prepaid for these training sessions, I'm not going to go. Or even if I go, I'm going to let myself off the hook. Otherwise, who needs a trainer? You just learn how to use the machines and do it. Like, why bother? Why pay for it? Because we know I'm not going to do it unless there's somebody standing over me saying, come on, you're not done yet. Come on, another. And in a way, we have to be that with the minds. You sit down to meditate and the mind goes, I've got so many emails to write. Oh my God. And you've got to be that trainer. Sit still. Don't budge. You're not going anywhere. And you be that trainer. The mind goes into catastrophe. Oh my God, if this happens, it's going to be the... And you're the trainer. You say, don't go there. I mean, just think about it, like your mind going off for a coffee break in the middle of its training session. No. I remember my yoga teacher, who was sort of the drill sergeant type of yoga teacher, and he'd have us in a posture and holding it, and some people who maybe were used to the more touchy-feely, like soft type of yoga teachers would come out, and he would look at them and say, I don't remember saying to come out. Like, who gave you an invitation to come down from handstand? Who told you to stand up? Like, hello? Look around, everybody else is still in it. Be that to your mind. Loving, but firm. You are the trainer of your mind. See it as a muscle. It wants to be lazy. It wants to do what it's always done. It wants to, be sedentary and sit on the couch. And you're the guy who's got to get it up and pumping. It's meditating. It's doing yoga. It's doing japa. It's not being negative. It's remembering I am soul, I'm not body. It's pulling it back every time. Right? Like the trainers so frequently will offer the resistance on the, you'll be doing the thing and they're the ones with the hands. Okay, push against me, push against me. You got to be that for your mind. Your mind is going in one direction. And you're offering it the resistance. Come back, come back, come back, come back. So just think about it like that. It's the nature of the mind. The other piece that I have found really helpful is journaling. And ironically, or perhaps not so ironically, it's a lot easier to journal, I have found, when things are going poorly than when they're going well. So when you're in a state of stress and crisis, yeah, gotta journal. When things are really good, it's a lot easier to think, no need to journal, I'm really good, I'll do something else. The benefit of journaling when you're grounded and connected is that when you're not, you've got something to go back and read and remember. Because when you're not, it's really easy to feel like this is how it is, this is how it's always gonna be. And if you're able to have something to read. Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, you kind of, or have a meditation accountability buddy. A person can do the same thing. But somebody to just reflect back to you actually how you feel at other times. To reflect back your grounded, connected self. But in your own words, in your journal, is the most powerful that I've found. Yeah, great. And just know that it happens to everybody. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah, any question anyone has? Maybe. Yes, please.
It's more a doubt than a question. In our spiritual journey, how far can we go by ourselves? Because in my case, I've started 6 years ago. I'm reading the text, meditating, praying. But now I feel that I'm reaching a limit. So the question is how to go further. So I came here to find the answer.
I'm so sorry, I didn't understand the full question. So you've been meditating, you're reaching this state, which is beautiful, and you're wanting to go further.
Yeah, how
Perfect.
to go further.
How to go further, great, yeah. So, growth in anything, physical growth, spiritual growth, I have found tends to happen for some people in a slow, continuous movement. But for most people, physical growth and spiritual growth tends to happen in bursts. And there may be periods of a slow, continuous movement, but I've noticed that a lot of it tends to also happen in bursts. You have a time of great growth. Things are opening, things are deepening, you're having experiences that are incredibly profound, incredibly deep, incredibly expansive. You're living day after day, moment after moment in what's feeling like kind of a continuous state of expansion. And it's ecstatic. And then it seems to stagnate. In some cases, it even feels like you go back a little bit, but it seems to stagnate. And then you get used to it, and that becomes kind of your new normal. But it has the experience of stagnation rather than growth. And once you've experienced the continual opening, it's very, very, very difficult, painful, depressing to feel like you're in a state of stagnation. But this is true about really everything in the world. There are seasons. There are seasons in nature. Times of the year in which there's great growth, times of the year in which there's not. Times of the year in which fruit trees give fruit, times of the year in which they don't. As I said, when we're growing physically, we have growth spurts, then it's stagnant, then we grow. And I think what's important spiritually is in those periods of stagnation, I take them as times to really focus on a practice of compassion and surrender. Because it's so easy to feel disappointed. It's easy to look around for reasons why, to blame. I've got the wrong mantra, I've got the wrong guru, I'm in the wrong spiritual community, I'm going to the wrong temple or church or whatever it may be. It's so easy to feel like I'm never going to have that experience of growth again. And these are really times, I think, where our call is compassion for the self and total surrender to God. And just compassion for this being that is soul, but in a human experience that is being constantly molded and shaped and impacted energetically by the physical world we live in, by all of the karmic bonds that we have from past lives, from this lives, from attachments. I mean, just so much is happening on this physical level that we are permeable to. It's all impacting us. And just compassion for that human of us that is having a period of feeling a bit more human than like spirit, and a bit more of the earth than of the heavens. Use it as a time to really feel the earth. Okay, here we are as humans on the earth. Okay, let's let this be the time that I'm hugging trees and lying in the dirt and looking at the stars in the night and swimming in rivers and lakes and oceans and cooking food and gardening, and like, okay, God, you want me to feel human, you want me on earth rather than, okay, yeah, let's do it fully. Hands in the dirt, barefoot in the dirt, like here we are, all right, human body in the earth. And just allow that to be the spiritual experience, with full surrender to the divine of, look, you're the one who graced me with it the first time around, or the first and the second and the third, or however many of these moments of great growth I've had. It's by your grace it happened in the past. I know you haven't forgotten me. Here I am, just, remember I'm here. Planting a garden in the meantime, making sandwiches for the homeless in the meantime, hugging trees in the meantime. And just full surrender and an embrace of the very human end of the spectrum. So rather than longing for that which is not happening in the moment, embrace that which is happening in the moment. Yeah. Great. Any other questions? Yes, come.
Hello. First of all, thank you so much for everything. You're really inspiring. I would like to know how to differentiate from those things that are so-called karma, and those who are attracted by us, by our present actions. I mean, something that's...
Okay, yeah. How to differentiate that which is happening due to past karma versus that which is happening due to present actions? Unfortunately, you can't. There's 3 types of karma, or rather 3 types of karmic fruit. Karma just means action. So there's an infinite number of types of action, but there's 3 types of karmic fruit. One type is what you can call the immediate result. I eat something, I feel full. I pour water on my sari is wet. I hug you, you hug me back. I hit you, you hit me back. Immediate action result. Then you have what we call long-term karma, which is karma that I've done a long time ago that is bearing fruit today. For example, you go on a job interview and you get the job. Now, did you get the job because of a decision that you made in that moment? To wear a certain type of clothes, to do your hair in a certain way, to tell a certain story in the interview? Or did you get it because of the actions that you did back in school when you were studying that particular thing, and instead of going to a party that night, you actually stayed home studying for an exam that you got an A on, that pushed you into the university that you got into, that enabled you to major in that subject, that made you actually a very qualified candidate for the job? They didn't care at all what you were wearing or how your hair was or the story you told in the interview, and they hired you entirely based on your credentials. But we have no way of knowing. You know you got the job. The other type of karmic fruit is that which comes in from past lives, that's bearing fruit in this birth. And again, there's no way to know. So I keep going on job interviews and I'm not getting a job. Is it because I've got body odor? Because I've stopped showering, like a decision of the present moment? Is it because I went to parties instead of studying for exams, and so I failed my exams, I didn't get into university, so my resume is awful? Or is it because of some past life karma that's bearing fruit in this life, that the lessons I need to learn are going to be learned through the struggle of trying and trying and trying to make a living and not being able to do it successfully? There's no way to know. And this is why it's so important to focus on what we do know, where we are and what we have control over. You know, sometimes people will ask me about past life regression, and I always say, you know, if you're interested in doing it, sure. You know, I'm not going to stop anybody from doing it. But my particular perspective is, we are where we are right now. Exactly what got me here, that which I did an hour ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 3 lifetimes ago, is not nearly as relevant as how I can make the right decision today. Because you cannot rewind history. An hour ago, 10 years ago, 2 lifetimes ago. In all of those cases, you can't undo it, you can't change it. The arrow has gone from the bow. It's all literally history. The repercussions will come as they come. All that matters now is what you do with the situations you have. And so on a personal level, it's always felt much, much wiser to focus on understanding how to refine my mind, refine my decision-making capacity, refine my intuition in such a way that I can make courageous, clear, anchored, grounded, connected decisions in this moment, rather than getting a narrative for why I am where I am. Yeah, so unfortunately, that which arises in life doesn't come with a tag. It's not like, you know, red for your immediate karma and blue if it was earlier this lifetime and green if it was past lifetimes. You don't know. But what you do know is here you are right now. And what are you going to do right here, right now?
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evenings, everyone. If we didn't have a chance to take your question tonight, we'll take it tomorrow. Kalapki question se shuru kar sakte hain. And I look so forward to seeing you all again tomorrow. And do be sure, of course, during the day to take advantage of all of the beautiful offerings that we have here, the yoga, the meditation, the philosophy classes, all of that which is going on, our morning sacred fire ceremonies, the arti, everything that we're offering, to really fill your days with as much as you can get. And I look so forward to seeing you again tomorrow. And so much love to you all.